Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Detectives These Days Are Crazy, Season 1, Episode 6. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, the first part of the episode revolves around a girls' night out, and I was actually curious who Mashiro was going to invite. And it's like, well, it should have been obvious it'd be like Maki and Azuho, so that should have been obvious, but I didn't know if there was going to be like someone she knew from school, because we've never really met any of her classmates except for the one from episode 2, I believe, the one that set up the whole ghost situation. I think that's the only classmate of hers we've met. So the fact is we have never really dived into that almost makes me wonder, does she not really have any friends at school at all? The fact is, like, usually everyone she's kind of hanging out with for the most part is kind of related to her job for the most part as an assistant to Naguma. I also love that he basically was like, you have too many like qualities that would not fit for like you're not like the cute adorable type to kind of fit like a girl's night out, which I do love. That is like we get tiny bits of like the boys' night out, because it's obviously Nagumo, Yu, and Nezu, which they're beefing about like a couple episodes back about the whole stalker situation. Then there was the whole lemon chicken situation, because I was thinking to myself, I was like, someone was watching recently anime wise that really like prominently kept like showcasing like lemon chicken. I was like, I believe it was Kowloon Generic Romance. But either way, tangents and all that aside, it is very inconsiderate of you to be like, oh, here's this chicken and they gave us the lemon, so I'm going to pour it all. It's like, well, you're sharing a chicken, so it's inconsiderate to put it up, because like maybe not everybody wants that, you know? And it becomes this conversation where like Nagumo's trying to act cool and like the responsible adult being like, you guys need to calm down. The fact of the matter is we should just be enjoying a peaceful meal and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, Master Sensei, Aniki, oh, Master Sensei, which side do you prefer? He's like, lemon aside. He's like, I don't think I can really stand the grease of fried chicken. So it's kind of a moot point. So that's the boys' side of things. Going back to the girls' side of things, Maki's obviously very nervous, and she's like, oh, I'm wondering who this Azuha friend that she's inviting. And then Azuha comes by with some like detecting device, and the moment she gets in there, for whatever reason, it points to Maki, and she's like, oh, you must be like Hana. And it's like, wait, what? Even she's like, wait, what did you detect for you to realize that I was Maki? Like that, what was that? And so she sits down and it's like, oh, this person's so weird. But then it's like awkward, because apparently they have to wait for Mashiro, because Mashiro has beef with some truck driver for some reason. Maybe they did something wrong, ran a light or something. Look, they didn't get into specifics of what Mashiro's beef with this truck driver was. But it's like Maki sitting there, because she's like kind of socially awkward. She's like, I don't know what to say. It's like, oh, where are you from? And just Azuha just being so like blunt. Oh yeah, I'm from my father's balls. It's like, okay, Mashiro, please get here. And she shows up, basically stylized like Urayu from Street Fighter. But yeah, they're kind of having fun, and it's like, but let's have like kind of a, what are the go-to like girly conversations at like a girl talk? It's like, oh, romance. And it's like, oh, what about you and you? And she immediately, without hesitation, without a frame of hesitation, Maki was like, no, not in a million years, this and that. It's like, never. It's like, wow, that's... And then, Maki tosses it back. Oh, what about you and Nagumo? She's like, oh, I can't. She admires Nagumo, but then she starts thinking about some of the stuff, and he's like, oh, sorry, you smell... Oh, it stinks? Yeah, it's probably my feet. And just like his just demeanor, and just she's like, nah, that's a no. She admires him and looks up to him, but I think it's also like the reality of who he really is as a person is enough to kind of make you go bleh when it comes to him. But regardless, they bring up Azuha's like, preferred type of man. She's like, oh, one that stays by my side, one that has a brain on him or whatever. And then we literally see hers as like a vision of her ideal man is just a literal brain. And it's like, well, that's... God, you're such a weirdo. And like previously, we have Maki getting drunk. She had like it seemed like she only had one mojito, but I guess she has a very low tolerance for alcohol, so she is drunk. And so they're trying to pump her for information. They're like, how old are you? And she's like, I'm in my 20s. They're like, wow, she must have such a guarded, like she must have created such a psychological barrier, because Mashiro had asked like, oh, because you're ordering alcohol. He's like, wait, how old actually are you? She's like, I'm in my 20s. well, no, she's initially avoiding it, and then she answers she's in her 20s. She has to be in her late 20s for her to kind of like, either she's like on the cusp of turning 30, or she must be in like her mid to late 20s for her to have such a like psychological barrier inside of her head, being so adamant about not saying how old she is. Because she's got to be in her 20s to like drink alcohol and stuff like that. We already knew that, but like for her to be so bashful, she doesn't even want to tell Nagumo how old she is. So she's definitely older than she potentially looks. But I'm like, she's probably in her mid 20s, and she feels self conscious about that, because even like people in their like early 20s, like to someone that's like 17 or something, someone like that's a high schooler like Mashiro, you would seem ancient or whatever. That's the joke. Like, oh my god, you're 22, 24. Oh my god, go ahead and dig your grave right now, because you might as well hop in because you're just seconds away from death type of situation, right? Once again, you know, the tropey joke in like anime and stuff like that, which we didn't even get into. I'm curious like how old Azuha is. Like that, she never came up in conversation because she's not as defensive about her age, so it's easier to poke at Maki about it. But yeah, like they basically try to ask her questions and then like ask her about her age. So they kept throwing in softballs and then her age, softball then her age, but she kept being super defensive about it. 20. And it's like, oh, tell us your secret. And her secret is, I like wearing capes. And I'm like, oh, well, I was like, why is that a secret? She's like, well, I'm very self-conscious about my body, specifically the size of her boobs, so she wears like clothes that can hide that. Which is like, I was like, that's actually kind of effed up that you guys are goading all this like information out of it. It's like you're taking advantage of a drunk person. Like, I get it, it's for shits and giggles, but I'm also like, oh, that's super messed up. And literally, well, I mean, they thought it was such an adorable thing, but then the next day, Maki's like, yo, I was drunk in front of you. Did I make a fool of myself? And Mashiro goes, I don't know. What do you think? And then Asuha comes over and being like, hey, I got some, like, stuff that can help you enlarge your boobs. And it's just like, oh, that's... Asuha seems like she seems like a socially awkward person where she just kind of has trouble, like... Maki's just, like, socially awkward in general, but I think it's, like, more so, like... Azuha's the type of awkward where it's just like she's unaware of how awkward she is because she just can't read the room. She's very like her all the way through. That's what I was trying to get at. So, oh yeah, they also asked her how she really felt about you, and for her, it's like, essentially she hates how much she's. It's almost like it's Nagumo this, Nagumo that. She says it's just so annoying and he's utterly oblivious, but for her, it's like he's the greatest detective I've ever, like, known. So she admires him and does look up to him, but I don't think it's like well, because he's like, once again, the thing is, she's probably like, even though I said all the stuff about her being her late 20s, but I said she's probably in like, also probably actually her mid to early 20s, because that's why I'm like, she probably is being truthful about like she would never be with him, but like they probably are a little closer in age than she's kind of making it seem like, because she's probably like, might be a thing of like she's 22 or 23 just being that bashful about her age or whatever. But because like I know you was like 18 if I believe, so that's why I'm like they're probably a little closer in age. The gap is not that big, but I mean it still could be. So God, I don't, like I said, I don't think it's like a romantic thing. It's just like I admire you and your skills type of situation, but maybe there is some underlying romance stuff. I do like that it wasn't too long before we got another episode with Maki getting drunk. So I'm like, oh man, like trying to figure out her age by getting her drunk is probably going to be a recurring bit throughout this series. Because there's probably going to be a lot of like moments where either she accidentally gets drunk or on purposely people get her drunk trying to like crack that wall to find out how old she is. And now moving on to the second part of the episode. In this episode, we have Mashiro being pissed at Nagumo because he calls her out for constantly breaking stuff. And inadvertently, he says, like, oh, like, Maki would never do some of this stuff. And for her, it's like, yo, you're chastising your partner. It's literally the one thing you shouldn't say. She's like, fine, you should have Maki be your partner. And then storms out and proceeds to, like, talk about a whole bunch of stuff about him being, you know, stinky feet, a tax evader, lolicon something, and then also saying like he should have 15 illegitimate children, you illegal immigrant. He's like, yo, don't like slap true stuff in there with the fake stuff to make it seem more legitimate or whatever. But he wanted to apologize to her the next day, but she immediately set up this whole thing of her and Maki switching which detectives they work for. So Mashiro goes to you and Maki comes works for Nagumo. And it turns out, Maki's very proficient at what she does. So before Nagumo can even do anything, it's like, oh, we're going to meet with the client, already knows what the rundown is, that, eventually it's like the client has had like a whole bunch of trash and stuff in front, like caught, like lit on fire. So there's that. And it's like, oh, like, obviously Nagumo's so like appreciative, like, oh my gosh, she's on top of everything, she's so great, even awards her points, which makes you wonder, does he award Mashiro points and Mashiro's just completely aware of it? Did he just verbalize it this time? Or is it just like, because he was just so caught up in this moment, he felt like rewarding her points? Either way, you and Mashiro are investigating a suspicious person. She immediately, I love that the bit keeps coming back to you being the suspicious person. It's like, to be fair, like, he was kind of very, they referenced it last episode, him being a stalker of Nagumo's, and now it's like, well, now you look like a suspicious person because you're digging through the trash. He's like, no, that was part of an investigation, but he made a point to be like, yo, the guy we're looking for in his 30s and 40s, wears the glasses and running around naked, who looks absolutely nothing like me. And then, like, Mashiro hurries up and makes a picture looking exactly like him, just fitting the details of the person they're looking for. And I love that the sign says, like, what was it, hurry up and kill me or something like that. I was like, Jesus. But then they run into the guy. He has, like, what was it, cinnamon and something else written on his chest, on the little tag on his chest. I was like, oh, are those supposed to be, like, the different names for your nipples? Because he's like, oh, like, which nipple do you want to taste? And Mashiro is like, oh my god, he's one of the 4 creepy guys that's existed in this, like, area from time to time. And I was like, oh, are they supposed to be almost like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, but the 4 creepy guys of this particular place in Japan? Because it turns out one of them is the cross-chest-haired guy from episode 2. I'm like, hey, he's back, just knowing that he's this recurring entity in the universe. The second one was this nipple guy, and the third is a rope guy, which we don't know what he looks like, so I guess we can expect him in a future episode. And apparently number 4 is Nagumo, because he's just a suspicious guy, and, like, I guess just the way he's dressed or something. Like, I can't remember why they said Nagumo's on the list, but Mashiro tries to go after the nipple guy, and he slips through her fingers, and it's like, oh my god, disgusting, he's probably covered in lotion. He's like, no, it's actually body fluids. It's like, ew, gross, that makes it even worse. And so Mashiro is starting to kind of feel bad, because it's like, this is stacked on top of, like, where her and Nagumo currently stand, so she's kind of like, oh, I feel like I'm failing, I'm messing this up, And then it happens to cross over with Nagumo and Maki's side of things as they're looking into this. The perpetrator immediately comes up the moment Nipple skirts by on his butt, and Mashiro's chasing after him. I think she literally threw, like, a pole at him, and she was gliding on top of it. It's like, oh, at least Mashiro is still Mashiro. But it turns out the person behind attacking Nagumo's client was, like, a guy who's pissed because he's like, yo, you're having an affair with my wife. He's like, dude, we just had a meal together. He's like, I saw you come out of a hotel together, which we never got a clarification on whether that was true or not, or whether it was just completely a misunderstanding. But he's like, yo, stay back or I'm going to, like, hurt you guys. Like, stay away from me, detective. And they can't really make a move. And then Mashiro resolves the situation because she punches Nipple Guy into this guy he claims his wife is having an affair with this particular guy, and knocks them both out, and they both get arrested. So, and in that fell swoop, both storylines cross to the crossing of the, which is weird to say with this, like, the A and B plot crossing, even though, like, they're both I guess you could technically be like, they're both the B plot of this episode, considering this is the second section of the episode, but it's like, for this segment, like, both are more A plots, I guess, at the same time. Whatever the case may be, the situation is easily resolved, and but Nagumo doesn't, like, Maki's like, oh, I'm sorry, it was useless. He was like, no, you've been great, in fact. He's like, this situation is like, the person we really should be thanking is Mashiro. She helped resolve everything. And Maki smiles because it's like, right, she knows how much Mashiro means to Nagumo. So it's like, yeah, just, and I think Mashiro just needs to be reminded every once in a while that, Nagumo does appreciate her, and he thanks her. And it's like, oh, well, how was Maki? And he was like, oh, she was, like, on top of everything. I didn't really need to do anything. And that pisses Mashiro off. But it's like, no, but at the same time, because of that, it was boring. Like, he's like, I like our dynamic. It keeps things fun and interesting. So like now I like, you know, with Maki being as proficient as she is, I don't actually need to do anything. So I mean, I think that still showcases like Yu is still good at what he does too. It's just they fit together so well with like his personality and her like preparedness, her prep and everything like that, versus like Mashiro being kind of like the crazy unhinged like muscle, whereas Nagumo's kind of like the out there wild card of a detective in some capacities. I guess they kind of a wild card pairing in themselves in their own right. But I mean, because he can kind of, at least he knows how to deal with Mashiro's like craziness. And once again, now I'm sitting here, I'm like, no, she's the wild card. He's kind of, I was about to say eclectic. I don't know what the right word to describe Nagumo is, but she's definitely the wild card. But she's also like, yeah, I'm sorry, I broke the stove. He was like, wait, that was you? It's like, geez, so we're right back to like you just breaking everything. So interesting little switching of assistants. Also, I didn't talk about it, but like Nipple Guy, we see he's one of the characters heads we see at the end of the episode. So I doubt this is the last we've seen of him. We might get some kind of creepy guy like pairing up, and Nagumo might get mixed up in this. Not less. I was about to say, I wasn't paying. No, it looked like it was Nagumo. I was like, that can't be like the guy that just happens to look like Nagumo who's stealing underwear and stuff. And what was that, episode 2 or 3? Not unless that's the same guy, you know. But the picture they used was definitely of Nagumo because like their mouths are different. So I don't think it was that pervert dude who was stealing women's underwear and stuff like that. But not unless that's who they were talking about. And just for the bit, they made it look like Nagumo because he was accused of being that person because they look so similar. So it's probably that. But if that is the case, it's probably going to be like maybe in the future there will be like an Avengers crossover amongst the perverts of the town. I mean, it doesn't seem like Crosshair has gotten in any trouble. Nipple has, because he's the one actively telling you to lick his nipples versus like Crosshair's just walking around. But I mean, that's still like probably indecent exposure, you know. But once again, what's Rope Guy's shtick, you know? So I think we'll see him soon enough. And now moving on to the third and final part of the episode, we have Nagumo believing himself to be a sauna expert, which immediately I'm like, oh, he would get along swimmingly well with Van Arkwright from the Trail series, specifically the Calvert arc, because, you know, the only thing he loves more than like hot baths and like sauna type of things is sweets. But either way, he considers himself a veteran, and he's like, oh, look at these young folks. They come here for comfort. This isn't comfort, kind of almost like this is a trial. This is an old man's game. Like, you don't really know the truth, or like, oh, what it does to you, yada, yada, yada. He's on his old man grind, or his old man bag. Either way, he sees on the TV, which I'm like, are there TVs inside? I've never been to like a sauna or whatever, or like a bathhouse like that. I've never been to one, so I'm like, is that... I would assume that's not applicable because I would assume the steam would mess with the TV. So I'd assume that's just some BS they made for the show. But they find out that a dine and dasher named Daiki ended up escaping from interrogation. And it's like, oh, well, I'd like to help out. But it's like, man, I haven't been to a sauna forever. This feels great. And then the suspect literally walks in there. And it's like, well, this might not be the guy. Actually, he's got like this particular tattoo, like a Che Guevara style tattoo in his back. No, that's him. It's like, well, should I do anything? It's like, the guy looks young and fit. He's like, if I actually fight the guy and if I try to arrest him, it will turn into a fight and I'll just embarrass myself. He's like, you know what I'll do? I'll basically make it hotter in here and I will basically wear him down. He's like, that'll be my tactic. So he wants to make it hotter. And I love the announcement, the subtitle being like, hey, you know, adding water to the stones makes it hotter here. Please ask the other people in the room how they feel about this. And so they raise it to like 100 degrees Celsius. And then, you know, they're having this back and forth about, like, yeah, young people these days, they can't handle it. And then, you know, they're like, oh, yeah, it's so cold in here. At one point, I think Nagumo even suggested, like, oh, I could put, like, hot soup in a catheter. or something like that and inject it into myself. I'm like, what the hell are you even talking about? But both of them looking at each other like, yo, this guy's hardcore. When he's like, oh, it's so hot, it's so cold in here, I might need to put a sweater on or something. They're saying like the most asinine thing. It's like the most like machismo, like dick swinging thing of like, I can handle this. I'm an old man who knows how to handle this. Oh, I'm a younger man that can handle this. Oh, let me boost up, add more water to it. And neither one of us is willing to back down. And then comes like the cliche joke. The moment an old man walks in here, Nagamo's like, whoa, you need to be careful going here. I'm like, the joke is he wants it much hotter. He's like, oh, do you mind if I add water? And he dumps the entire bucket. Because I know that's like the cliche of like, it's like old people. Like, because I think I've referenced this previously in maybe another anime that had a similar thing. But I will always go back to the... there's a Persona 5 bit where like the guys are hanging out at a bathhouse and like throughout the entire time they're having a conversation, you see this old man in the background just like turning the water, just trying to get hotter and hotter to the point where Ryuji's like, yo, I've had enough. Like, oh man, cut it out. That's enough hot water. So it just made me immediately think of that bit. But the moment he added the water, just like the temperature rising and then like the rippling effect from just like the steam and just the pressure making both Daiki and Nagumo's skin ripple and their skin turning red, and then Nagumo passes out. But by the time he wakes up, he finds out like the attendant there had to drag him out. Apparently Daiki, I think, got knocked out too, so he ended up getting arrested. The old man, turns out he came out on his own, and Nagumo's like, oh, my only takeaway is like, yeah, I thought I was a veteran, but that old man showed me what's what. And he proceeds to stand up and his towel falls, and they're like, yo, put your pants back on. But I love the attendant's takeaway. You're not a rookie. I guess trying to make Nagumo feel better. But poor Mashiro and Maki getting a full frontal show like that. It's kind of a shame. And that's the final bit. Excited to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.